If you are just an ordinary person trying to write and publish their first book, it can be so difficult to know what you should really expect from the outcome of the process. And this is why so many people will ask me, how much can I expect to earn, or what can I expect to earn after I publish this book? It's easy to find stats on the New York Times bestseller list, or even books that have gotten picked up on documentaries or that kind of thing. But how do we think about this when we are not celebrities? We are just ordinary people who want to get our ideas out. Well, that's why today I want to talk about this. Stay tuned.
If you're writing a memoir, but you're not sure where to start, and let's face it, you're not really sure where you're going after you do get started, then you are not alone. Not having a plan for your memoir is one of the most common reasons I see that people fall off of these projects that they care about so deeply. And that's why my team created the Memoir Method Checklist. This absolutely free download is going to take you through every single step along with the timeline, all the way from your seed of an idea, all the way through holding that beautiful book in your hands. And you can download it at pageandpodium.com/checklist. Happy writing.
One of the most frequently read posts on Page and Podium's blog is a blog post called "How Much Do Self-Published Authors Make?" Now, spoiler alert, in that post, I'm going to go through and break down all the different kind of factors that you need to think about. Of course, it is not as simple as input A into output B. But one thing that I do want to talk about today is the way that we need to be thinking about what authors make, whether you're self-published or traditionally published. So let me start, in case you're here just for the straight numbers, let me give you a little rundown of what I talk about in that post, because I want to add on some additional things that are earnings, but that I bet you're not thinking about, that I know most people are not thinking about until they're in the middle of that publishing process. So the first thing is, when we draw from the 2023 Alliance of Independent Authors study, what they found was that the median earnings for self-published authors, so median means if we take the lowest and the highest, put all the numbers in order, what is the middle number? That number for self-published authors was $12,749. For traditional, it was less than half of that at $6,080. Now, the average tells a little bit of a different story. That is understandable. The most recent average that we have at this point is the 2022 survey. And in the 2022 survey, the answer to the average earnings for a self-published author was $82,600. Now, these numbers are all over the place, right? Because there are some self-published authors, Mike Michalowicz is a great example, who have built an empire on putting out books that are in the same sort of genre, the same sort of target audience, and they are marketing and promoting all the time. On the other hand, we know that many self-published authors will put their book out and just kind of leave it. What I find is that most self-published authors are in the middle there. They will do some marketing, some promotion, sometimes they'll hire someone, sometimes they'll DIY, and that is why there is so much variability in the amount you're going to earn. But there's another factor that is even more important when we're thinking about the variability of income for self-published authors. And that factor is, what else are you going to do with that book? Now, I mentioned Mike Michalowicz a second ago. He writes business books. He's a great example of this, right? The numbers that he will earn from the sale of the book are likely very small in proportion to the numbers that he earns from people joining his group or one-on-one coaching programs as a result of having read that book. No doubt, this is magnitudes of difference. And that's what I want to talk about today, is that sometimes when we're thinking about how much we're going to earn from our book or what is going to be the outcome in the end of publishing this book, we can get really caught up in the sales numbers, right? We want to, be a bestseller on Amazon or be a bestseller on the Times list. People will say like, okay, well, how do I calculate how much will I make per book and then how many books will I sell? That is a great way to keep that a little bit passive income, although we're going to be out there promoting all the time, right? But that is one way to keep that income coming in. But there are many, many other things that you are going to get from that book. So a lot of times I have talked in the past about things like paid keynotes. If you are getting out there with that book, particularly if you are doing nonfiction, this is slightly easier for prescriptive nonfiction than it is for, say, memoir or other narrative nonfiction. Although, bot back to last week's video when I talked about building your platform, and you will see that there are actually lots of ways that narrative nonfiction, so memoirists, biographers, and also fiction authors can tap into some of the same things that self-help, how-to, and leadership authors do. We can talk about paid keynotes. We can talk about things like consulting. We can talk about coaching programs. If you own a business, we can talk about what is the direct benefit on your business of having this book out. But I find that this is all really intangible. If you are not somebody who has been through this process before, if you don't have somebody like me or another professional who has guided a lot of people through this to kind of tell you what to expect, it's really difficult to see how publishing a book is directly going to lead to these other much more lucrative situations when you're not really sure what the through line is going to be. So that's why today I want to talk about not only how much you can earn, but what are some of the things that you are going to earn? What are some of the things that can come out of this book that I guarantee you're not thinking about, but that are not only going to be lucrative, but that are also going to be so much more valuable than any kind of a numbers game is ever going to represent. So let's talk about some of the things that I have seen ordinary people, my clients, non-celebrities, come out with once they have finished publishing that book, once it is on the market, and when they step into this very real scenario of having a book. Now, this video was inspired by the first story that I want to tell here, and that is when I met recently with Wendy Davis. Now, Page and Podium published her book, maybe it's been 6 months, 8 months ago. Her book is called The Fight You Don't See. It is an excellent read. It's a memoir that weaves in her political knowledge as a political scientist, as well as someone who has run for office. Very, very timely as we are in this heated election season. She talks about all the stuff that happens behind the scenes, not only with your competitor, the person that you are running for office against, but also within her own party. There were lots of things she hadn't anticipated that I think will be really helpful if you are interested in learning more about behind the scenes politics. But as she and I were meeting to kind of just talk about how things were going, to just check in a bit, one of the things she said to me was, I really had to shift my mindset. What she had really expected going in was, this is true for almost every author I know, by the way, was that she was thinking, that the main payoff would be in the number of books sold. Now, she's happy. We talked about the book sales. She's happy with the book sales. But what she said was, really what I hadn't anticipated was all the other stuff that would have so much value in her life that really isn't reflected at all in the book sales, that she could have sold 10 books and still had a lot of these same things. So the first of those that I want to share is that she talked about the credibility of being a published author. Now for her, someone who is in this political arena, she does a lot of coaching and kind of mentoring women who are running for office. She is in this world of politics. And she told me she was at a fundraiser pretty recently, and a man came up to her and, she introduced herself, as you do, any kind of a mixer or whatever. Man came up to her and she introduced herself. And he was like, oh, are you the one that wrote that book? Oh my gosh. First of all, this is the coolest thing whenever this happens. This has happened to me too, and I just about fell over. But one thing that she said was, as she talked to this man, she could tell that once she said her name and once he connected that to her book, he wasn't looking at her the same. She was now a published author. Now, I know that is sort of this dream, kind of dream title that a lot of people that are watching this channel are no doubt either aspiring to or like really holding on to. I remember when my first book came out, a friend got me a little button that said published author. I just thought that was the coolest thing. But it's more than just having that title for your own kind of good feeling, your own pride. Having that title means so much to the average person. And this makes sense, right? When we are in the arena of publishing, it's really easy to imagine that kind of everybody else is in this arena. You're reading stuff if you're, in Facebook groups or other kind of social media groups, you're reading about other people that are publishing, people who are kind of beating you to the punch. If you are somebody that's looking for a traditional deal, you're probably hearing about these people that are getting those deals and like maybe yours isn't going through yet. It is really, really easy to believe that more people are in this arena than really are. And the truth is, it is less than 1% of the population that will ever get to this published author status. Cool, we can feel so proud of that. But also, when people meet a published author, something happens in their mind. There's a different level of credibility. There is a different level of just knowledge and elevation in our society that really makes people look at you a lot different. So that sometimes I'll meet people at a networking event and I really just don't want to talk about a book, right? We just kind of chat, whatever, it's over. If you talk about being a published author at a networking event, very, very often people are so much more interested in what you have to say. They will lean in, they will remember who you are, they will ask for a business card. Being a published author gets you a level of credibility that I don't know that anything else does, frankly. There is just something about being able to introduce yourself as an author that is going to get you so far in people just really finding you credible and knowledgeable. So that's the first thing, is you're going to gain this level of credibility from publishing your book that we can't really put a numbers value on. But does that level of credibility possibly get you lucrative types of opportunities? 100%. Of course it does, right? Everyone wants to hire somebody credible. So think about that. How do we factor that into what we are earning from our book? Okay, the second example that I want to give, this one is something that is a little bit less tangible in terms of how it's going to lead to, say a bottom line change, but I think it's just as important. And that is that being a published author will give you the opportunity to make change. Now, I will sometimes get comments on this channel about kind of being too woke or bringing woke stuff in. I will not apologize for that. That is a part of my brand and it's part of my mission in this life. So if you are somebody who doesn't like woke stuff, you can just scroll on. But what I want to share about is when my co-author Andre E. Johnson and my second book on Black Lives Matter was kind of in press, we had started to promote it, started to talk about it, he and I got the most incredible opportunity. Now this again comes back to credibility, right? Especially if you have more than one book on a particular topic, that can really start to build kind of how much of an expert people view you as. So one of the things that happened was he and I were both part of a national organization for people who studied communication. Specifically, we studied, social movement communication, how people work together to kind of build these movements that make change in our world. Well, this is tens of thousands of people are part of this organization. It's huge, huge, huge organization. And every year there is a convention. Everybody goes to it. So usually as part of this convention, they'll have like one person that's kind of giving the main speech. And then they'll have maybe like 4 different sessions that are kind of highlighted sessions that will just be kind of organized by different people. Well, I remember when we had just started talking about the second book, we got an email from the organizer of this convention, and she said, you know what, we would like the two of you to organize, kind of put together one of the talks as part of those 4, right? We want you to talk about activism. We want you to talk about, Black Lives Matter and kind of the changes in racial politics at this moment in time. So what most people will do is kind of bring in some other people that have the same kind of perspective, whatever, and just give a talk. We really felt that we wanted to kind of disrupt things. And since we had been invited to give this, we hadn't applied, we were invited to kind of organize this panel. We decided to use the money that they had given us to hire people to speak, to hire actual activists. So we didn't want other experts in the way that we felt like we were being elevated as experts. We wanted experts who were on the ground doing this work. Now, I will tell you, that meant that we got to meet 4 amazing people that I don't know if we would have met otherwise. Now, my co-author Andre has even leveraged this even further. At one point, he got to meet and spend some time with George Floyd's brother, really help contribute to the fundraising that they are doing as part of the George Floyd Foundation. This is such cool stuff, right? This is so important to me, important to him as part of the work that we do, as part of the reason that we think that writing is important. And one of the things that I wanted to mention here is that sometimes the thing that you are earning might not even be a bottom line. It might not even be something that's kind of adding to your tally of money that you're making. But that doesn't mean it's not extremely, extremely valuable. And getting to go into this conference space and use it to kind of reorganize and represent kind of the way that people were thinking about what that conference, what that convention could be, that was priceless to both of us. That was something that was so, so valuable. Getting to meet these people, getting to collaborate with them, getting to really kind of share the stage with other people whose voices we believed were really, really important. Priceless. Okay, the third thing that I want to mention, this is something that you want to think about in terms of what you are already doing. And the example I want to pull from here is one of our authors we worked with just several months ago, Adam Tank. His book is called Luck by Design. This book is incredible, by the way. It is such an inspiring and just fun read about the way that these little things that happen in our life, these kind of random coincidences, synchronicities, these things that happen in our lives can seem so little. But then when we trace the trajectory of all of those things that have happened to us, we really get to see kind of the growth of our life coming back to this one little moment. He has one, for example, where he happened to pick up this tube of chapstick at a gift shop. And it literally led to him meeting his wife and having their child. So all of these things that really are little tiny things can end up blowing way, way up. I love this book, as you can tell. So one thing that Adam had been doing before he worked on this book was that he was giving a lot of keynotes, a lot of plenaries. He's been in the water industry, so he does a lot of talking about kind of clean water and renewable resources and that kind of thing. So one thing that he started to do as that book was going into production, as it was getting ready to come out, is that he started, as he was kind of lining up these upcoming keynote, these upcoming talks that he had, he started to just drop in, hey, I have a new book coming out. I would love, to give your audience, to be able to give your audience kind of the gift of having this book. Would you be willing to do a bulk order of a couple hundred books so that everybody in the audience can have one? And you know what? Almost every single time he asked that, the conference organizers were like, sure, yeah, let's work that out, right? When you are doing that kind of a sale, you can give them a great deal. And who doesn't love giving a little bit more value to the people that are at that conference? Well, what does that do for Adam? He already was doing this keynote speech, right? Well, I want you to imagine the difference between walking in to see a motivational speaker, a speaker that's going to, inspire you, give you some really helpful information. And in one case, you walk in, you find your seat, the speaker gives the talk, right? In the other case, you walk in and there's a book on your seat and it's the person you're going to watch speak, right? Or you walk in and as you walk in, someone hands you a copy of that book. The just buzz and excitement that is going to be around that talk in the second instance, right? Where you have, oh my gosh, look, I have this book. This person wrote this book. I'm about to see them. The buzz and the excitement is it's a different thing, right? It's a next kind of level of excitement. And what that does is amplify what you're already doing. So now where he was already going to give this talk, he was already, getting compensated in whatever way he had negotiated, there is now this extra layer of not only the compensation for the talk, but the fact that that audience is so excited and now they have your book, right? Now they can read it, they can go talk to their friends about it. Something he was already going to do, all it required was one quick question. Would you be willing to work with me to get copies of this book to everybody in the audience? It is an easy question to ask. The worst that can happen is they say no, but most of the time they are going to want to work with you on that. And that can be a great way to boost the things you are already doing, make them even more effective. Okay, the fourth thing that you can earn from getting this book out that I bet you're not thinking about is the cool opportunities. I really cannot overstate this enough. Now, I want to give another example from Wendy Davis, who I mentioned earlier. She's a politician. I think at this time in kind of our history, the political topic, there are just a lot of really cool things that are happening. So one thing that happened with her, this has been a few months ago now, is that in the process of kind of promoting this book, and my company was the publisher, so I was doing some kind of networking on her behalf and just thinking about how we were going to get this book out into the world. So I ended up speaking with a connection that I have who does some kind of Main Street Alliance. I'll give a shout out to them. That they do, what they do is work with kind of small business owners to kind of have a conduit to speak to politicians, make sure that all of the kind of political needs of small business owners and small businesses are being advocated for. So I had spoken with him about Wendy's book and kind of the work that she was doing with politics, with elevating women, with just really making sure that people had a voice in politics. And he was really excited to hear this, the guy I was talking to. So he had said, you know what, actually connect me with Wendy. That sounds great. We'll just kind of see if anything comes from it. Well, she'd updated me and she'd said, you know, she'd given a training. It was kind of right up her alley, the stuff she was interested in doing. This kind of goes back to this idea of having an in to influence things the way you want them to be influenced. But, you know, she said it went great. She loved it. On to the next promotional types of things, right? Well, when I met with her the other day, she said, I can't believe I have to add this thing. I can't believe I haven't told you this. Because she had given that training, months later, this person that she had connected with at Main Street Alliance was looking for representatives to go to the White House and directly advocate for the needs of small business owners. And of course, because he had met her, because he had read her book, because he knew she knew what she was talking about, because during the promotional cycle she'd done this training for him, he said, you are the perfect person to come and represent your region. That meant she got to go to Washington, D.C. She got to meet people in the actual White House. She had already met Joe Biden, but she got to meet different people in the White House. And it was just such an amazing experience for her to be able to go through that. Now, what is the monetary value of something like that? It's hard to say, right? We don't really know. Down the line, it could end up being something that's lucrative for her. But I'll tell you what, when she was telling me that, she was not worried about how much money it was going to get her. What she wanted to talk about was how cool it was, what a once-in-a-lifetime experience that was. Now, for you, you may have different things that you're really interested in investing in. That's great. There's anything goes in terms of what you want to get out of your book. But I do want to bring that up because not all the things that you're going to earn from publishing that book need to be about that dollars and cents. Sometimes they are just about having these experiences that money couldn't even buy anyway, right? Experiences that most people in this world do not get to have. And now here you are enjoying all the fruits of all that labor of writing. Okay, and then the last thing, the fifth thing that I want to talk about that you can earn from your book that I bet you're not thinking of is this feeling of helping the people that you're wanting to help. So I want to give as an example another book, and that is Victor James Hill, The Ignorant Man's Son. So this book is a memoir about Victor's time growing up in the projects in Pontiac, Michigan, outside of Detroit, and really working with the kids in that area to form these social programs. He helped a lot of them kind of join basketball teams, play basketball. He had a league so that he was really uplifting the kids from his community and helping them find things that they loved and that they could invest in. Well, he is from this very close-knit little community. It doesn't exist anymore, but at the time it was a group of housing projects where his grandparents had been some of the very first people to move into those projects. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody was super close. Well, one thing that happened was right when that book came out, and so of course there's buzz, you know, before there's buzz anywhere else, there's buzz among your family and your friends and the people that love you. And some of that buzz got to a prison that was nearby and reached someone that had also grown up in those projects that was in prison at that time. Now he was looking at parole and kind of thinking about when he was going to get out, kind of what was he going to do. Well, one of the coolest things, Victor got a letter from the prison. And one of the things that this guy wrote was, I never really thought about anybody from our area, anybody, you know, like us, was going to come out of the project and write a book, become a published author. And that to him was so, so inspiring. It showed him that he could do amazing things too, right? That he could step up. He could follow these dreams that maybe, you know, people had been telling him were not ever going to be possible or realistic. But that now Victor had shown him he could absolutely reach for and he absolutely could achieve. So That is such a cool opportunity. Is that something that is monetary or lucrative? Maybe, not necessarily. But again, some of these things you might not be thinking about as earnings from your book. They absolutely are. Some days that check, that bottom line is the most important thing. Plenty of other days, the difference that you're making, the way that you're changing people's lives, and even honestly, the way that you are moving through opportunities to go bigger and bigger and bigger with this thing you want to do in the world. Sometimes that's what matters way, way, way more than that royalties check. Okay, so as I'm wrapping this up, I want to encourage you to really think about, especially if you are in the thick of writing, if you're trying to kind of motivate yourself by thinking about what is going to come from this process, really give some thought to what is the value of this book for you. I get it. A lot of people are really focused on, not only earning money, but if you're working with professionals, kind of recouping that money. That makes perfect sense. That is a totally noble goal to shoot for. But I also wanted you to think about, what are the other things that would be valuable? What are the other things that could really change your life and change other people's lives that you might not be thinking of, and that honestly are way bigger than book sales? Okay, as you're moving through this, be sure that you keep that purpose in mind. It's going to move you forward so much more quickly and with so much more joy. I can't wait to see your book. Happy writing.
Writing your memoir can be one of the most rewarding, fulfilling, beneficial tasks that you can take on in this lifetime. But unfortunately, it can also be kind of a slog, especially if you don't know how to plan your time. And that is why my team has put together an absolutely free resource called the Memoir Method Checklist. This checklist is going to take you through every single step you need from that very first seed of an idea all the way through publishing that book and holding it in your hands. We're going to give you the steps, we're going to give you the timeline, and we are going to make sure that you always know where you're going, even a step before you get there. You can download this resource for free at pageandpodium.com/checklist. And once you do, let me know what you think. I would love to hear from you, hear about your book, and hear about how your writing is going.